Some pains don't leave visible marks, but they weigh like stones within us. They are emotional scars that, unlike physical ones, don't heal on their own. Often, the passing of years only deepens them. Have you ever noticed how certain events hurt again, even when you thought you'd overcome them? It's as if your mind insists on repeating the past. Carl Jung believed that the psyche possesses hidden laws that govern how we feel and react to the world. For him, emotional pain is not just a coincidence, but a reflection of internal patterns we don't yet understand. With each painful experience, life invites us to look at something within ourselves. The problem is that most people avoid this invitation, repeating the same mistakes and wounds. But what if there were psychological laws capable of shielding you from the repetition of these pains? Not by eliminating them completely, because feeling is part of life, but by preventing them from becoming chains that imprison us. Jung showed us that it is possible to transform suffering into learning, darkness into awareness, wounds into strength. The key is to understand these invisible laws. These laws are not magic formulas, nor quick fixes. They are principles that emerge from the very structure of the human mind. When ignored, they keep us trapped in endless cycles of pain. But when applied, they open space for true inner freedom. It's like learning to dance with your own shadow instead of fighting it. Imagine your mind is a maze. Without understanding its rules, you get lost going in circles, bumping into the same walls. But when you understand the logic that guides you, you find secret passages that were previously hidden. This is the role of psychological laws, to reveal the invisible shortcuts that lead to healing and emotional strength. In this video, we'll explore the 7 laws Jung left as our legacy. They don't promise a life without pain, but they offer tools to help you no longer be a slave to it. In the end, you might realize that pain was never an enemy, but merely a demanding teacher, always ready to show your soul where it needs to grow. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Carl Jung stated that we all carry a shadow within us. It consists of everything we reject or deny within ourselves: fears, desires, impulses, memories, and even talents we never allow to blossom. Ignoring this shadow doesn't make it disappear. On the contrary, it grows stronger, silently acting on our choices, sabotaging relationships and fueling insecurities. When we don't recognize the shadow, we project onto others what we don't accept in ourselves. We overly criticize behaviors that, deep down, reflect hidden aspects of our own personality. It's like pointing an accusatory finger without realizing that 3 fingers are pointing back at us. Projection is the unconscious mechanism by which we try to escape what we don't want to face internally. A clear example is the person who condemns arrogance in everyone, but who silently struggles with their own need for recognition. Another case is someone who harshly criticizes the insecurity of others without admitting their own hidden fragility. The more we deny our shadow, the more it manifests itself in others, creating conflicts that seem external, but are actually internal mirrors. Recognizing the shadow requires courage. It's like staring into a dark mirror that reveals not only what we like, but also what we avoid seeing. However, by accepting its existence, we take the first step toward integrating it. This integration doesn't mean surrendering to the dark side, but understanding it, bringing it into the light of consciousness, where it ceases to have destructive power. Metaphorically, the shadow is like a heavy backpack we carry without realizing it. The more we try to pretend it doesn't exist, the more tired we become. But when we open it and examine what's inside, we can choose what's truly worth carrying and what needs to be left behind. The simple act of looking transforms the burden into a learning experience. Recognizing and integrating the shadow is the first law to shielding yourself from emotional pain, because as long as we don't face it, it continues to control our reactions. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it destiny." And if the shadow is the first key, the next step is learning to cultivate inner silence, the second law of a strong mind. Emotional pain grows in the noise of the mind. Racing thoughts, painful memories, and incessant worries act as echoes that amplify suffering. Jung believed that the psyche only finds clarity when it learns to silence this internal noise. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of a space where we can observe without reacting immediately. When we react automatically, we fuel the pain. A criticism we receive can become a mental storm, repeated dozens of times within us. Inner silence creates a pause between stimulus and response, allowing our reactions to be conscious, not impulsive. It is in this interval that true psychological strength is born. Imagine the mind as a lake. When the surface is turbulent, we can't see the bottom, but when the water calms, everything becomes visible. Inner silence does just that. It clarifies the waters of consciousness, allowing us to see the source of pain instead of just feeling its effects. Only then can we transform suffering into understanding. In practice, cultivating inner silence can be as simple as pausing for a few seconds before responding to a provocation, or taking a deep breath when anxiety threatens to overwhelm you. These small pauses act as switches that turn off the mind's autopilot. The result is a sense of self-mastery, rather than submission to emotions. Silence should not be confused with escape. It's not about ignoring the problem, but about creating space to process it clearly. Running away from pain only strengthens it. Observing it in silence is the first step to dissolving it. It's like stopping stirring water. Only then does it become clear enough to reveal what was hidden. This second law shows us that inner silence is a tool of healing and protection. It shields us from the immediate impact of emotional wounds, allowing us to choose how to respond. But silence without discipline can easily turn into passivity. This is why the third law is essential, the emotional discipline that differentiates reaction from response. Jung's third psychological law teaches us that emotional discipline is the art of transforming impulses into conscious choices. We all feel anger, fear, sadness, and frustration, but not all of us know how to manage these emotions without letting them overwhelm us. Emotional discipline doesn't eliminate feelings, but it creates an internal space where we can decide how to act instead of reacting automatically. Reacting is instinctive, responding is conscious. The difference may seem subtle, but it changes everything. A word spoken in the heat of the moment can destroy relationships, while strategic silence can preserve precious bonds. Emotional discipline is precisely that invisible brake that allows us to control our impulses and transform emotional energy into constructive force. Imagine a warrior facing a battle. The enemy provokes him, trying to take control of him. The undisciplined warrior attacks without thinking and falls into the trap. The disciplined one, however, waits for the right moment, observes, and responds with precision. This is how the mind works. Without discipline, we are carried away. With discipline, we choose the path. In practice, this law can be applied to simple, everyday situations. When someone unfairly criticizes you, you can react with fury, or take a deep breath and respond in a way that maintains your dignity. When anxiety hits, you can give in to panic or choose a small gesture of calm. These are small decisions, but repeated, they build inner strength. Emotional discipline doesn't mean repressing feelings. Repressing them is pushing them into the unconscious, where the pain grows. Discipline is embracing what you feel, but not letting that feeling dictate all your actions. It's like holding the reins of a wild horse. The force is there, but now under control. Emotion ceases to be an enemy and becomes directed energy. This law shows us that emotional pain comes not only from events, but from how we react to them. By mastering your responses, you shield your psyche from unnecessary wounds. But there's something even deeper. Many of us repeat the same mistakes because we're trapped in unconscious patterns of pain, and that's what the fourth law addresses. Jung believed that the human mind possesses a curious mechanism. It repeats patterns of pain until we learn to understand them. This means that painful situations don't just happen by chance, but as reflections of something within us that hasn't yet been resolved. It's as if life insists on presenting the same lesson in different guises until we are finally ready to integrate it. A common example is relationships. Many people find they attract different partners, but they always present the same problems: control, abandonment, and betrayal. This is no coincidence. It's the psyche repeating an unconscious pattern, as if to say, here's the wound you still need to heal. Ignoring this cycle only ensures it will continue to repeat itself with ever-increasing pain. This repetition also appears in professional choices. Some people change jobs constantly, but in all of them they face oppressive bosses or situations of devaluation. The scenario changes, but the wound remains the same. This shows that the pain isn't just in the external environment, but in the internal pattern that needs to be recognized. Until this happens, the mind will continue to attract similar contexts. We can imagine these patterns as a broken puzzle piece that we insist on fitting into the wrong place. No matter how hard we try, it never fits, and we end up forcing the same frustration over and over again. Only when we accept that the piece needs to be observed and understood can we reposition it correctly. The same thing happens with emotional wounds. The key to breaking the cycle is to observe the signs. Ask yourself, where have I experienced this before? What part of me hasn't yet grasped this lesson? This self-reflection illuminates what was previously unconscious. When the pattern becomes visible, it no longer holds the same power over us. What once seemed like immutable destiny reveals itself as an opportunity for transformation. But how do we find the right path amidst so many replays? This is where the fifth psychological law comes in. Intuition as an inner compass. It's intuition that points to people, environments, and choices capable of healing, even when reason can't explain it. Jung believed that intuition was one of the purest forms of psyche wisdom. It doesn't depend on logic or external evidence, but emerges as a silent, almost invisible perception that points to what is good or bad for us. We often ignore this subtle voice, but it is a compass capable of indicating the paths to emotional healing even before the rational mind comprehends it. Before we continue, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so you don't miss our next meetings. Have you ever had the feeling that someone wouldn't do you any good, even for no apparent reason? Or, conversely, that you needed to be somewhere and, by obeying that impulse, found something transformative? These are examples of how intuition manifests. It's not magic, it's psychic intelligence. It's the deep mind sending signals of protection and guidance. Intuition can be compared to a lighthouse in the midst of a storm. While winds and waves obscure our vision, the lighthouse remains steadfast, illuminating the path. Following it requires trust, because it often points in directions contrary to what logic suggests. But when we learn to listen to this silent light, we discover safe paths that avoid repeating pain. In the process of emotional healing, intuition reveals which people strengthen our journey and which drain our energy. It reveals when it's time to persist or let go. How often do we persist in relationships and situations that already show clear signs of wear and tear? By ignoring our intuition, we prolong the suffering. By following it, we anticipate relief. It's important to understand that intuition doesn't replace discipline, but complements it. It points the way, but it's up to us to follow it. It's like having a compass in hand. It shows the north, but it doesn't navigate the path for you. For Jung, true emotional armor emerges when we combine intuition and conscious action. This combination creates choices aligned with our deepest essence. And here we reach the climax. Intuition is not only a tool for prevention, but also for healing. It guides us to experiences, encounters, and practices that restore what has been wounded. This is the fifth psychological law, and, combined with the previous ones, it completes the circle of inner protection. But the final step remains: understanding how these laws come together in a transformative closure. We've reached the end of this journey through Jung's psychological laws. Along the way, we've seen that emotional pain isn't just a consequence of external events, but a reflection of internal processes that demand our attention. Wounds recur because we insist on ignoring the signs. But when we understand the invisible laws of the psyche, we learn to protect ourselves and transform suffering into awareness. The first law showed us the importance of recognizing the shadow. Then, we learned to cultivate inner silence and emotional discipline. We saw that repeated patterns are not punishments, but invitations to transformation, and we discovered how intuition can be a guide and a healer, always pointing us toward paths that strengthen rather than harm. Together, these laws form an invisible shield against unnecessary pain. But it's important to understand, shielding yourself from pain doesn't mean you'll never suffer again. Life will continue to bring challenges, losses, and disappointments. What changes is how you navigate these moments. When you apply these laws, pain ceases to be paralyzing and becomes an instructor. It reveals rather than destroys. You begin to carry not only scars, but also wisdom. Think of someone who has lived through a storm and learned to walk in the rain. This person no longer fears thunder because they know it's part of nature's cycle. The same is true of emotions. Those who learn Jung's laws no longer fear pain because they understand it's part of growth. Fear is replaced by confidence and fragility by strength. Ultimately, what Jung taught us is that true emotional freedom lies not in avoiding suffering, but in not being enslaved by it. When you acknowledge the shadow, cultivate silence, practice discipline, break patterns, and follow your intuition, you create an inner fortress that nothing external can overcome. This is the true armor of a strong mind. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these laws resonated most with you? Write in the comments, because your insight might be just the insight someone else needs today. Remember, pain may be inevitable, but repeated suffering is optional. And you already hold the keys to choosing how you want to live from now on. And if you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like it. Until next time, best regards.